This story might be true.
One night when Bob was looking at all the stars, he saw a flash, and instead of barking, he said,
"My name is Whisker. What's yours?" "My name is Precious Lily Gucci Pearl Fluffy," replied the red cat.
They went inside the castle to hide from any lampshades. There they met Lily the Bat, who had lived on the roof for years. "Who crashed into my castle?" shouted Lily.
Then outside the window, a murder of crows, the size of vultures, lined up on the telephone wire, screeching loudly and triumphantly.
Little did they know, the taxi driver had been kidnapped, and in their place was an unqualified driver, also known as Bob the Starbucks manager in disguise. But he was in fact not the Starbucks manager. He was a McDonald's manager spy, whose mission was to monitor the chicken nugget sales.
They found Dr. Terry, a hydra nugget, and a dog that could shoot water.
Foxy the pencil rolled onto the pitch.
Dr. Terry pulled his shrink machine out of his lab coat pocket, and suddenly a beam came out.
The torch also shone on initials on the wall.
They could see the rainbow lights of the games and the clock on the register machine. They realised they were quite early.
They were so tired that they fell asleep in the fountain.
Cuckoo walked confidently towards the building because he had night vision. He climbed through the broken glass to get inside.
Deanie Sore knew all the good hiding places in Bally Bay, but didn't want to tell Joe the Giant. He wanted Joe to figure it all out by himself. He wanted to help Joe learn more about Bally Bay and develop his brain.
He only had one eye. He was very tall and wide with lots of wool and was 14 years old. His coat was lovely and brown.
Bob the cowgoat was feeling quite depressed as he walked around Tesco looking for a new phone.
He had heard of a legend and a myth of a device that could control the moon. He had to break through some extra flooring to get to the device. Suddenly he was blasted into a wall by a friar breathing
A king cobra called Charlie.
All of a sudden, a woman ran towards them in fear, and behind her stood a tall figure they met in Belfast, who turned out to be Bob. But it wasn't Bob this time.
They saw the tall figure enter Starbucks. They took off their cloak and revealed themselves.
You're in, kid!
He went to the freezer to get ice. When he opened the door,
Icicle began to feel hot. I wish the sun would go away. It makes me feel nervous. I'm scared I might melt.
"I really need a coffee now," he told them. Bob the ginger cat, who always wore a top hat, was in the car with his owner.
As they sped through the town, they saw people and football players walk into the stadium.
It was finally time for Foxy's match. He kept looking down in nervousness. The coach pulled out the sharpener for the players to make sure they are in tip-top shape. The enemy team came onto the pitch, led by Gemily the Eraser, the most feared player in all the league. To set the mood of war, along came a band of dinosaurs who strung their guitars and beat the drums.
Anyone else would feel under pressure, but Cathy was confident as she stood bravely in front of the goal. Just as she went to take it, she felt her hamstring pull, and out of nowhere a portal opened above her.
He started to feel weird. His vision went blurry, his hands and feet tingled. He closed his eyes and saw a vision.
27 stained glass windows, and the faces slowly began to turn to ghosts, and they started to come towards her, moaning.
Juliet looked at me and nodded. You could see the fear creep upon her face. She was too nervous to talk.
"This is your last warning," it whispered. She could see the shadow of a person, a tall, skinny person with broad shoulders. She was petrified, and she knew she must have been hit with something.
She pulled me into a portal in the form of an enlarged blue eye. I grasped the edge of the windowsill and climbed through. So I reached over with one of my hands. Dizziness struck my head upon entering. I started falling. and I kept falling.
There they found a giant lampshade sitting on the windowsill. Underneath the hood was a 10-year-old girl standing on stilts.
She wore a wig and glasses, but that did not fool Jamal. She was feeding the baby popcorn.
This baby was not like any other Archaeopteryx. It was tall, with many different coloured wings and a reddish-orange beak.
But what if the baby was evil and ate the whole town of Drogheda because it was hungry? Libby the Hydra jumped into action and munched on the chicken nugget. She began to turn into a chicken nugget Hydra. Cheese Man and Cheese Woman were so angry that they turned into blocks of mouldy cheddar and blue cheese.
I dare you to get into the rocket and fly to the moon to get the best cheese in the universe.
He flew over to West Street and headed into Penny's to get some panda clothes. While he was shopping, his gears broke down halfway and he started to fall, but he was caught midway by an astronaut and flew out of the school bag.
Down below, Bobby stood up, wiped the dirt off his knees and looked around. He saw a mobile phone lying there. He picked it up and read the message on the screen.
It was dark and rainy in the bogside. The night lightning struck through the dark. The lightning startled Linda and she crashed the car.
Barry was on the run from witches who were chasing him for the last 5 years. He was part of a top-secret get-rid-of-witches agency.
Every Halloween night, a storm would visit the church. It was almost as if the church was stuck in the same time loop. As they made their way through the graveyard, they noticed that there was some uprooted graves. One of the graves looked dug up, and there was muddy drag marks leading from the grave up to the church. Abruptly, a door opened at the back of the church.
The two girls walked down the stairs. They had the panicked realization.
There were 3 old wooden doors on the side opposite the chute they fell through. The doors were painted black and peeling, revealing the wood underneath.
The friends turned around in horror and saw a tall, burly, confident, glowing figure. It glided slowly up the aisle towards the group.
The witches found out about their leaving and tried to chase them, but they fell into a puddle.
Kusanaka, the legendary sea monster, floated up from the depths.
But all the doors were locked and she was trapped inside.
Rosie was the only one of her family with wings.
When they reached Gucci's treehouse, they saw a very, very, very big
T-Rex called Rory.
He kicks the door in and sees a hallway receding into the darkness behind it.
She saw the pig with the red eye. It was just staring at her. It started to charge towards her. As it ran, it started to rise up onto 2 legs. Its body began to grow longer, its black fur slowly turning into brown robes. Its curly tail disappeared.
A storm blew all the leaves inside and the rain got everybody wet. The balls of the ball pit burst through the net and they tripped everybody up.
They stole all the trampolines and set up headquarters in Cuchulain's castle. There they shaped the trampolines into catapults. The girl opened a portal.
The glitter gathered into a tornado that threatened to blow up the coffee shop. It was so strong, it forced the people out of the coffee shop, where they could only see feathers, a beak, and purple gills.
The KFC chef looked worried. The kitchen was hot, and now he had to make a lot of food.
Peely and Shellbob had a special gun. They fired at the magician and turned him into chocolate cake.
It was scrumdiddly-umptious. The gang took Burgerman and Lady Rock to Oldbridge to celebrate Burgerman's birthday party and to apologise to him for taking a bite. They could take a walk and look over the River Boyne.
But somehow they didn't fall into the water. Holly realised Samantha was holding them up by controlling the water with her hands.
They all went to Ora Drogheda Leisure Centre for a swim, but Whiskers still had a fear of the water, so they made their way over to Claire's to get some matching accessories.
But he should go into Penny's. They had a sale on handbags.
Jonathan and Whiskered spotted a man on one of the jet skis wearing a lampshade hat. But when they saw him return, he had to come up with a plan. They planked the mouse at the front door. Squeak!
Reluctantly, everybody stopped singing, and the scowling ticket collector
glitched out of reality and fell through the ground and landed in the Infinite Complex.
Both Andy and Speedy McGee cried tears of joy and started to make snow angels.
Kusanaka slashed the ship with its tentacles. Slowly, the HMS Botanic started to sink.
The purple hat started to sing, "Don't worry, be happy."
He had more self-confidence and he was happier. The owl had helped him discover his true wisdom.